In the primitive politics of the undersea's world, many forms of life long ago learned that survival depended on the common strategy of the species. Under attack, this cohesive community of strangers can explode in all directions like a golden grenade, distracting predators from zeroing in on a single victim. Other species have learned to gather in massively efficient hunting packs in their constant scouring of the sea for the food of life. And still other creatures learn that only by mobilizing in vast multitudes can they perpetuate their unknown destinies, by giving life to unborn generations. April 2nd.
Yesterday evening, when the launch crew was preparing one of our mini-subs for a test dive, they spotted a school of 40 to 50 sea arrow squid alongside Calypso. It's the first time we've seen squid since we entered California coastal waters. All on board have long become alert to the unexpected ways of oceanic life. So our curiosity is suddenly quickened by the sight of several hundred of the sea jets.
A crewman reflexively moves to lower another sea light deeper into the dark waters. Oblivious to the dangerous presence of prowling blue sharks, thousands and hundreds of thousands of the translucent phantoms suddenly well up from the depths like a living tide, until Calypso is virtually ensnared in a Sargasso sea of squid. It is the beginning of the night of the squid.
Head mini-sub pilot Albert Falco gladly welcomes the unexpected massing of the sea arrow squid. They will provide a night dive with a spectacular opportunity to test the mini-sub's new narrow beam camera lights. And Calypso's always enterprising chef also take immediate advantage of this rare sea bonanza. Never before in his life have such delicacies fairly leapt into his versatile skillets.
At exactly 4:15 a.m., the mini-sub is swung out over the sea of squid. Falco reports by telephone that all systems are go and that he is ready to fly. Jacques disconnects the nylon safety line and the communications cable. And alone with his own thoughts, the intrepid Falco starts the mini-sub down. He is about to enter for the first time into that theatrical, near hallucinatory instant of time, which we will soon learn is the sea arrow's ancestral convocation of life and death. At a depth of nearly 100 feet, hovering just above the bottom, Falco begins to describe his observations from within the sub. Suddenly, he cuts his narrative short to report he has lost all power in his propulsion motors.
Gaston cautiously advises Falco to immediately shut down all unessential power drains, even though the mini-subs have independent life support and communication systems adequate for 24 hours.
Falco, in turn, advises topside he is about to manually release the sub's cast iron ballast and proceed to the surface. Instinctively, the recovery launch operator moves to within a few yards of where he estimates the mini-sub will emerge. Gaston informs Falco that immediately upon surfacing, the recovery launch will take the mini-sub in tow. Falco again acknowledges.
The recovery operation is always a busy affair. The surfacing mini-sub, the noisy launch, our divers and camera lights should frighten the squid away. Instead, untold numbers of these spectral-like creatures continue to materialize around Calypso, as if by sea magic.
Safely aboard Calypso, all thoughts of the malfunction of the sub's motors are put aside by the divers. Little in their long experience beneath the sea can compare with what they have seen tonight.
André Laban is the first to discover a clue to explain the incredible gathering of the sea arrows and their quixotic behavior. Stuck to the sub's hull is a small clutch of sea arrow egg cases. By sheer chance, Calypso has anchored over one of the secret spawning grounds of the elusive sea arrow squid.
Immediately, a radio alert is put out for Captain Cousteau, who is ashore on ship's business. Then a camera team prepares to film the pre-dawn underwater spectacle of the sea arrow's mating dance. Wary of the mindless but unpredictable blue sharks, the divers move out with billies at the ready. An accidental collision with a blue in the confusion of the squid-strobed night waters could cause a serious injury. With professional detachment, the camera team executes a final equipment and buddy check, and then they dive.
It is usually impossible for our divers to approach these normally shy and fugitive creatures, even within camera range. But now, with their single life's moment of mass mating but a few hours away, they are completely oblivious to the intruders. Amazingly, the divers can actually touch them. Even an unflappable mola-mola fish seems to adopt the uncharacteristic behavior of the squids. It is as though an entire generation of sea arrows is aware that their moment of truth has arrived.
The divers have never before observed the unique courtship antics of the sea arrows. They begin to collect specimens for observation in the Calypso aquarium. So involved are the squid in their undulating preamble to the supreme biological act of their lives They appear to be totally oblivious to all else. As the divers ascend, it is like moving through the strange underwater cyclotron, aglow with flying particles of organic energy.
As divers return to Calypso with the first specimens of sea arrows, they know from long experience what lies ahead. All of us on board have become observers of the behavior of life in the sea. As such, we are necessarily opportunists. No matter what our planned destination or objective may be, we are prepared at any time to change, to take immediate advantage of whatever unforeseen opportunities the sea presents, in her own unfathomable way.
As the specimen squid are transferred to the ship's aquarium, they revert for a split second to sea form. In the calm of topside, the divers can now observe in detail the sea arrow's inky decoys and his pulsing jet power. But in the ship's galley, the irrepressible Remo Amadio has only thoughts of several hundred untried variations in the preparation of squid provençal. It is the one dimension of the sea arrow adventure, which the men and divers of Calypso will come to look upon with some lack of relish.
At 8:40 this morning, I arrived by seaplane at the anchorage of Calypso, near an offshore island of the southern California coastline. I was anxious to obtain from Falco and the divers detailed eyewitness accounts of their initial encounter with the sea arrow spawning migration. I was also eager to set into action a plan I developed on the plane to film, for the first time in the wild, the complete procreation cycle of the sea arrow squids.
Cousteau is immediately advised by the ship's captain that the nearby availability of provisions will permit the ship to remain anchored where it is for an indefinite period of time. Cousteau is then shown the cause of the mini-sub's loss of motor power during its pre-dawn dive. Squid, sucked into the intakes of the sub's water jets, had forced the electric motors to overload to a fuse-blowing level. Next, Cousteau holds a conference with crew leaders to outline his plan for round-the-clock filming and television monitoring of the spawning activities. Calypso comes alive with action. Cameras and diving gear are checked out with an eye to a unique opportunity to obtain a rare film document for the study of marine biologists concerned with the reduction of squid stocks in some of the world fisheries.
Most of the 600 living varieties of the squid family constitute a vital link in the undersea food chain. Many open ocean fish and sea mammals depend heavily and sometimes exclusively on squid as their food staple. While my shipmates set up the video cameras, I cannot help figuring out the terrible damage a single net hole could do here as a critical mating begins.
By 8 p.m., the sea arrows, sensitive to the ultraviolet rays of sunlight, have returned to the upper waters. Courtship has ended and mating has begun, foreshadowing 72 consecutive hours of violence, life, and desperation. Cousteau then urges the divers to strive for individual close-ups of the mating action, an almost impossible task in the swirling storm of squid. In the communication shack, the deep water mating of the sea arrows is already under the observation of a TV monitoring team. Suddenly, with little warning, Calypso is plunged into darkness.
Hey, qu'est-ce qui arrive?
René Rubino, the ship's engineer, moves quickly to discover the source of the power generator failure. With the experience of the mini-sub's luckless dive the preceding night in mind, he first checks the seawater intake filter of the generator's circulation pump. A short dozen, or a little more than 2 pounds of Sea Arrow gremlins has brought the total operation of the 360-ton Calypso to a complete standstill. With the marine engineer's silently begrudging salute to the omnipresent squids, Rubino proceeds to restore the ship's power supply.
Our divers move quickly to examine the generator pump intake screens located on the underside of Calypso's hull. Their purpose is to make recommendations to the ship's engineer. He will improvise a device to prevent a repetition of the incident. Loss of power would mean our filming of the squid at night would be interrupted.
A returning diver shows in a way most natural to him the insidiousness of the Sea Arrow squids, a slippery, insinuating capability which has already paralyzed the mini-sub and darkened Calypso. At 9 p.m., Cousteau gives the go-ahead to commence filming. Before the night is over, the 8 divers will spend an aggregate of 16 hours in the swirling maelstrom of the mating squids. They will shoot 1 mile of film and consume 36 tanks of compressed air. And in the darkness of the sea, they will be witness to sudden death.
Ordinarily, squids move and maneuver by the use of swimming fins located on the sides of their fusiform bodies. Their instantaneous jet propulsion potential is mainly used when chasing food or escaping enemies. The males, however, also use jet action in the mating process to fiercely compete for egg-ripe females. The ratio of males to females, all an average age of 3 years, is nearly 1-to-1. But in the mating melee, there is no pairing of the sexes. Mating is entirely polygamous and troilism is common. Often, in the abandon frenzy, frantic males will mistakenly attempt to couple with other males. This often leads to indignant violence. Mainly for camouflage, all squid have the capability to change their color to many exquisite hues. Therefore, one of the most striking manifestations of the mating act is the blushing of the males. At his greatest point of excitement, waves of maroon sweep over his head and arms until he releases the female from his urgent embrace.
110 feet down, the burgeoning females have already begun to litter the seafloor with gelatinous egg cases. During the next 3 days, every female will lay 10 to 20 cylindrical egg capsules, each containing, on the average, 100 individual eggs. To prevent sea currents from carrying the egg cases away from the temperate waters, the females painstakingly anchor the sticky filament of each capsule to seafloor or bottom outcroppings. Ordinarily, most of the fastidious females arrange their egg strands into communal bouquets, resembling buoyant sea chrysanthemums.
During their strenuous labors, the females continue to welcome the attentions of males. For even if the males spill their adhesive milk in the water flowing around the egg clusters, the sperm will penetrate the still soft capsules, and the mystery of life will begin.
Having reached the limits of their diving time, the camera teams are forced to call it a night. As they slowly move up through the darkness to their first decompression level, they intuitively sense the shadowy presence of death. Perhaps attracted by the grappling of the mating squid as they are by the helpless thrashing of wounded sea animals, the sharks move in.
Normally, the jet-propelled squids are among the fastest creatures in the sea, and for their size, certainly the most elusive. What a lamentable irony that they fall victims to jackals of the sea at the precise moment they join in vulnerable life-producing embrace.
Low on air, and confident that the feeding sharks are safely preoccupied, the divers surface. Momentarily, they are cut off from the carnage below. At that instant, the unpredictable happens. A 12-foot, tooth-studded blue arcs widely in his pass at the mating squid, forcefully reminding the divers that they too are frail strangers in his domain.
For 15 days, Raymond has served squid to the divers and crew. They have eaten squid prepared in ink, fried squid, baked squid, boiled squid, stewed squid, squid fricassé, squid en casserole, and squid à la squid. Only André Laban shares the chef's enthusiasm. Perhaps because it's been hinted that a daily diet of squid might help to restore his hair.
Ah non alors, allez remballe ça là.
Ah, j'en veux plus manger.
Allez, je veux plus les...
Allez, enlève ça.
Terminé.
Donne ça à la barre, c'est le seul qui les mange. Délice.
Remballe.
Allez, jette ça aux mouettes. Allez, jette ça aux mouettes. Du calmar.
But Raymond Cole has another plan for quickly reducing the cook's refrigerated stocks of squid. For several days, he has observed a California sea lion being fed fish in a nearby training enclosure. But Cole knows that in the wild, the succulent squid are priority prey for the agile seals. Hand feeding the seal, Cole is flooded with a warm memory of an earlier time when squid was not the only bond between him and another seal he had come to know and love, named Pepito. But all of that was in another place, another time.
Squid, the sperm are produced in packets, which contain many thousands of sperm, each one. And these are called spermatophores. They're produced...
We have invited on board Calypso Miss June Lindstedt. She is an invertebrate zoologist with the University of Southern California Marine Biological Laboratory. Intrigued by our filming of the sea arrows, she has agreed to share her knowledge with us.
Notice the 8 arms, the 2 tentacles, and the head with its almost human eyes.
Oui.
Below the eye is the jet-like funnel, and the rest of the body is covered by a muscular mantle. The mating male usually approaches the female from below and to the side. Then, using a specially adapted arm, he transfers to the female from 20 to 40 sperm packets.
Oui, oui. Oui, oui.
The actual transfer of sperm packets takes place so fast that only by special photography can the action be seen in detail. For example, here you see the male holding the female, and with one arm reach back to the opening of his funnel.
Oui, oui, je comprends.
There, the tip of his arm curls around an instantly extruded sheaf of sperm packets. The arm then swings forward to deposit the self-ejaculating sperm packets close to the female oviduct, which is located within the mantle cavity. The male may repeat this action several times before releasing his hold upon the female.
Extraordinaire. Je ne pensais pas que ce soit comme ça.
Here, in an extreme close-up of the action, you can see clearly the arm of the male grasping a compact bundle of spermatophores, all of uniform size. Each spermatophore contains countless microscopic spermatozoa.
Miss Lindstedt next explains to Falco that the female eggs are thus uniquely fertilized internally. But in addition, excess inactive spermatozoa are stored in a reservoir by the female for release during the actual egg-laying period. One of nature's many fail-safe methods for perpetuating the species.
Next to each other.
Eggs are produced in the ovary, and as they pass through the oviduct, the protective egg case is formed around them. The whole mass is then extruded through the funnel opening, and not without considerable exertion. The anchor filament emerges from the funnel first. But when the egg case is completely free of the funnel, the capsule is moved backward until the end of the anchor can be held in the tips of the female's arms.
La nature est vraiment surprenante.
She's then prepared to attach the egg case securely to the sea floor.
Au fond de la mer,
This is the moment, just before the permeable jelly of the capsule begins to harden, when the female may diffuse some of her reservoir of spermatozoa over the surface of the egg case.
formidable.
After a short rest period, the female squid will repeat this egg-laying process at regular intervals throughout the 3 to 4 day spawning period.
Incroyable. Absolument incroyable.
The essence of classical tragic drama is that the audience knows from the very beginning the inevitable outcome of the play, the irreversible destiny of the protagonist. As witness to the fall of another human being from the pinnacle of his life, the onlookers are struck with fear and pity. For a vicarious instant, they are terrifyingly aware of their own ultimate fate. And so it is in nature. The tragedy of the sea arrows is to remind us how fleeting is our moment of life.
Within 72 hours after the great gathering of the sea arrows had turned into an aquabatic orgy, the divers discover the first signs of attrition. Many of the bejeweled sea arrows, who had arrived so recently from the reaches of the sea, now hang onto the kelp, bleached out, heaving with exhaustion. "24 hours later, starving males halt their compulsive mating attacks, only long enough to cannibalize weakened females. Many of the females are too weary to labor the egg capsules from their funnels, and others whose body substance has been sapped by the creative process are near death, some locked in the arms of expiring males. The long night of an entire generation of sea arrows is drawing to a close.
On the 5th day, our divers report that the mating has come to an end, that the spawning is finished, that all is quiet here, save for the lingering of an occasional sea arrow. All others are dead. 20 million tiny corpses are strewn across the wide underwater plains that lead to the sea world beyond. The sea arrows have kept their appointment in Samara.
April 18th.
This morning, we are visited by a pod of pilot whales. They have come to feast upon the sea arrows as they have done every day during the spawning of the squid. But this time, they will be disappointed. Now, there are no sea arrows here for the pilot whales to devour. So they turn and head out to deeper waters in search for other bounty.
Living squids are prey for a host of marine predators, including themselves. But the greatest toll is taken by fishes ranging from king salmon to swordfish. The sea mammals also exact their measure of the squid population, the single largest consumer being the 50-ton sperm whale. And birds, from sea terns to the emperor penguins, take their share too. Even dead, the sea arrows are prey to these scavengers of the sea, the blacksmith fish.
I have asked our divers to undertake a daylight survey to determine the size of the sea arrow spawning grounds. Perhaps then we can estimate the results of the squid's reproductive activities.
Suddenly, Bernard Delamotte and Louis Prezelin are astonished to discover amidst the jumble of egg cases a barely living female sea arrow. Valiantly, she is attempting to deliver the last of her issue. Delamotte's gallantry is only exceeded by his midwifery. Continuing their underseas exploration, the divers spot an angel shark, oafishly dozing on a mop of egg capsules. Awakened, the angel shark leads the divers on an unprecedented, privately conducted tour of the sea arrow's spawning grounds, a veritable blizzard of life.
Here, in this vast sea nursery, the silent throb of life begins anew. Here, a new generation of sea arrows will be born, some 7 billion strong. They, like their forebears, will live out their inevitable destinies, and they too will have their great moment. We have decided to remain at the CRO spawning grounds for the next month, the time it will take for the incubation and hatching of the baby squids. Every few days, our divers will collect specimens of egg capsules for microscopic examination aboard Calypso.
Cousteau also has the underwater television camera moved to the central locus of the spawning grounds. On board Calypso, a 24-hour watch will then be maintained to observe the changes which take place in the protective capsules. Already, the capsules have increased in size. And in the weeks ahead, as the embryos within grow, the elastic egg cases will stretch, ultimately expanding to 5 times their original volume at the moment of hatching.
A white chiffon-like sponge contrasts sharply with the sea fungus blossoming rapidly on the organic egg cases. This distasteful fungoid growth, combined with the toughening of the capsules, provides for the evolving squid nearly total protection from possible bottom-feeding predators. The iron-stomached starfish is actually the only known predator of the baby squids before they're born. But it takes nearly 3 to 4 days for the starfish to digest the leathery capsules. So they probably resort to the squid eggs only when there is no other easily available food supply.
On the 24th day of incubation, Cousteau decides to dissect one of the sea arrow egg cases for microscopic examination. The plasticity of the capsule resists even the scalpel's fine edge.
Alors, comme ils sont mûrs, j'ai l'impression qu'on doit pouvoir ouvrir. Oh, c'est solide, hein? C'est solide.
Next, Cousteau removes from the gelatinous matrix a single transparent corian, a kind of expandable private aquarium, within which the miniature squid can maintain a suitable environment for its individual needs.
Un de ces œufs, sans l'abîmer, de le mettre sur le microscope. Une platine par-dessus.
To the naked eye, the myriad colors of this tiny jewel of life can be seen shining with radiant brilliance. And under the lens of the microscope, the perfectly formed squid pulses with a life rhythm handed down from ancestors 200 million years ago. Changing to a higher powered objective, Cousteau shows Falco a close-up of the rough mosaic-like texture of the young animal's skin.
Oh, c'est splendide. C'est beau, hein? Mais c'est marrant, on dirait qu'il a une poche lui-même dans ses pattes, vous avez vu?
Oui, oui. C'est vraiment le calmar miniature, hein, complet avec tout ce qu'il faut pour nager, pour manger, pour saisir sa proie. Extraordinaire, hein?
Crew members of Calypso accept Miss June Lindsted's invitation to visit her laboratory. There, with the aid of a high-powered profile projector, they will be able to observe in minute detail the complete development of the sea arrow embryo.
Éteins la lumière, c'est prêt.
Here we have stripped away most of the egg capsule to show the cellophane-like membranes, which in this case contain 10-day-old embryos. As you can see, the individual eggs are tightly packed together, but there still remains ample room inside each for the growth and movement of the embryo.
Regarde, il bouge déjà.
For a more detailed view of the embryo at this age, they must be removed from the turgid chorion.
C'est fantastique.
3 bulges mark the embryo at this stage. The uppermost bulge will become the mantle and most of the internal organs. The arms of the squid are visible below the 2 lateral bulges, and these bulges will become the eyes and part of the brain. The largest mass is the embryo's external yolk sac.
Ils sont déjà formés.
In the next several views, you can observe the embryos as they feed upon the egg sacs, something like a baby drinking milk from a bottle.
Remarquable.
The yolk contains all the nourishment needed by the embryo, and generally it is used up before hatching. Although sometimes squids may hatch with a residue yolk sac still present.
Qu'est-ce que c'est beau?
This 24-day-old embryo is nearly ready to hatch. You can easily see the suckers on his arms around the nearly depleted yolk sac.
C'est les yeux, ça?
Yes, the eyes are now fully functional, and I might add, the squid's eye is very similar in both structure and function to the human eye.
Miss Lindstedt then details the anatomy of the squid's flashing chromatophores and speculates on their possible use as schooling beacons in the dark, or perhaps as luminescent lures for ingenuous prey. She then describes the violent action of the chorion-contained embryo when they are ready to leave the security of their tiny cells for the risks and adventures of the sea.
In hatching, the embryo uses a special organ located just between its two fins. This Y-shaped protrusion is used to secrete enzymes which digest away a portion of the chorionic membrane. At the same time, this organ pulsates and is used mechanically to drill a perforation in the chorion wall. It is through this hole that the embryo first uses the power of its jet action to escape from the egg. Upon hatching, the 1/8-inch baby squids are instantly hyperactive, as you can see here.
Ça y est, il est sorti.
And curiously enough, sometimes the first act of a newly hatched squid is a defensive one, the releasing of a cloud of ink into the water.
You say that's a cloud?
Well, to him, that's a cloud of ink. And who knows, maybe it's just enough to save him from becoming a snack for a hungry 2-inch mackerel.
20% of every new CRO generation dies before hatching, largely because of changes in the nursery environment. 50% of the live born are eaten by predators in the first week of their lives. The survivors are the only hope of their species, for buried in their genes lies a primeval drive to populate the oceans of the world. They, like all varieties of life on this planet, including man, will go forth blindly and compulsively to inherit the earth. This feeble, pulsing infant dance of life, multiplied billions of times over, is but a prelude to their massive invasion of the sea.
On May 18th, Cousteau returns his divers to the site of the sea arrow's spawning grounds. Visibility excellent. Temperature 61 degrees. Here an instant ago, where an older generation of sea arrows had gathered itself into a vast multitude, mated, gave birth to a new generation, and died, there is nothing. And here, a split second ago, where an entirely new generation of sea arrows were born and danced the dance of the young, there is nothing. Nothing except that eternally silent witness, the sea.
Oui, on va se terminer pour les calmars. On a assisté à la naissance, à l'amour, à la mort. C'est fini. Il n'y a plus qu'à faire route au sud.
It is over, finished. Let's head south. And as goes Calypso, so goes the undersea reveries of the divers and crew.
Under the keel of Calypso, the elusive creatures enjoy a freedom we can only dream about. At times, the sonar pings of Calypso awakes unidentified echoes from the deep, perhaps from migrating masses of sea jets. 1,000 feet deep, from the diving saucer, I have seen young ones, 2 or 3 inches long, probably blinded by our lights, dash headfirst into the mud of the bottom, and then time after time soar aloft and dive again. I also remember one evening when Calypso stopped for an early night dive. The sea was smooth as a mirror, the moonless sky black. Suddenly, for miles around us, little creatures popped out of the sea and fell back with tiny splashes. They were our squids. For a few minutes, it looked and sounded like rain. There is so much mystery. We still do not know what kind of life our squids lead between birth and death. But this much we do know. In spite of the perils and hazards of the squid's life in the deep, the sea arrows will return. And in countless unknown sheltered bays, they will relive, as they must, their tragic ancestral rite of the sea on some other night of the squid.